Hi, everybody.
Hello.
All right, we'll get started in about 30 seconds or so. All right, folks, it's noon, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Hopefully you get some good information about today's Zoom session. I will be recording this, and I'll put this link to the video in the folder, the Zoom folder, that you'll find in the lab folder, sorry, the lab section. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll start going through the syllabus, and then if anybody has any questions, just feel free to pipe in at any time. I'll also be asking occasionally along the way if you have any questions, so you'll have opportunities then as well. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll get started here. All right, so no, it's a bit weird, you know, doing a lab course via online. You know, it's a new reality for me as well. You know, so you won't get all that hands-on interaction that you usually get in the lab by using all the different kinds of materials and all of that. But, you know, hopefully you'll be able to still get the experience you need by doing the lab videos, and certainly by doing all the calculations and lab work that goes along with it. So the intent here is for me to try and make this as lab-like as I possibly can, which includes you keeping a full lab book that includes full calculations as well, which is the intent behind putting in all the different pictures of your lab book pages as we go. All right, so just starting out with the syllabus here. Obviously, this whole safety thing is not going to be really much of an issue here, and there won't be anything to do with makeups either. It's not going to be an issue. All right, let me share my screen here. Okay, hopefully you can all see my screen. Is that correct? Is that a yes? Okay, good. All right, so the required assignments. There'll be a pre-lab, there'll be a post-lab, there'll be your results, and there's also a place for you to put your lab book pages as well. So let me show you an example of that. I'll show you the first lab here. I know it seems really quick, but your first pre-lab is going to be due tomorrow evening, because the first lab would have been Thursday.
I thought it was tonight.
Actually, I moved all the dates for today because I had actually not set them. I set them for Mondays, not Tuesdays initially.
Okay.
I've changed that now. So now it's all based around the actual experiment schedule for Tuesday classes, Tuesday, Thursday classes. I know it's a little bit confusing, but that's how I've got it set up. So yeah, your first pre-lab is not due it's due tomorrow evening. I want everybody to be clear on that. But in each folder, you'll have a lab video. And I know the temptation will be not to watch the lab video, but you'll get a lot of information from it. I really want people to watch the lab video. And I think it will, in some cases, it's got information about calculations and things as well. So it's really going to be important for you to make sure that you watch the lab video and watch it in full, so you have a greater context of what you'll need to do. You may even want to watch it before doing the pre-lab. That might even be helpful. But it doesn't have to be. The main preparation for the pre-lab would be reading the lab manual. Now, I know that the bookstore hasn't made it easy to get a lab manual. We let them know about this because we were getting emails from students saying, "Oh, we can't see this lab manual on the bookstore website." And so we let them know. And starting Saturday, I guess they started showing it. But in the meantime, I know they're giving you free ground shipping, but I don't know how long they're going to take to get it to you. But we do have the lab manual here, so just print it out from here, or just view it as a PDF file. Either way, until you possibly get the hard copy or you print it out. Either way, it doesn't really matter. So that's where you'll get most of the information you'll need for doing the pre-lab. You get 2 attempts at the pre-lab, by the way. And I would say, and I had an issue with a student last night who wasn't successful with their first attempt, but they reached out to me for help, and they were able to do their second attempt and get 100%. So that's the whole point. If you don't do well on the first attempt, figure out why, get some help, and then take the second attempt. Don't just hope for the best. That'd be my advice. Also, leave enough time to get some help. Don't leave it till like 11:55 on the night it's due. Otherwise, you won't have time to get the help you need. The other thing you'll have here is it's the results, and the results are going to be based upon what's in the lab manual here, I should say. I'll download this. And what you'll see in the lab manual is a procedure, and you'll see that being done on the video, obviously. And then you'll also see these data sheets. Now, these are the ones that I want you to paste. So you will have to print these out at least. Print these out and paste them into your lab book, which is going to be a notebook. So for the KF lab, for example, it's this page. These tables would need to be pasted in to your lab book. So the main things I want to see is you can put a summary at front if you want to. I'm not really emphasizing that, but you can do that if you want to. The main things I really want to see are these data sheets filled in. And I do also want to see the full calculations as well. And I have a special specific way that I want those set out. And I'll make that clear in a minute. These post-lab questions here are similar to the ones that you'll see in the regular post-lab, but again, you get 2 attempts at that as well. And the post-lab questions you'll do are very much based on what you'll see here. But these are not things you have to do. You don't have to do those post-lab questions. All right, any questions so far?
I have a question.
Yeah, Nathan.
So for filling out those tables, do we have to do it as a hard copy, or could we just use a file editor to type in our answers?
I really want you to do it by hand. And I have a reason for that. I want these to be unique attempts. If they're electronic, I think it makes it a bit too easy for people to share documents and not to do them themselves. I don't want that to happen. So I would really prefer that all this get filled out by hand. And that's the other thing, is that once they're in the lab book, you're going to sign across them diagonally with your signature, and then you're going to take pictures of them, and those are the pictures you're going to submit into the Dropbox, which we'll get to in a minute.
Question about the post-lab.
Yeah.
Questions, quizzes. Are those things that are written by you, or are they amalgamated from all of the science staff and everybody contributed their own version? One of the things I ran into last semester was what we were taught in class versus what we were doing for results and lab questions, that type of thing, were 2 totally different.
Mm-hmm.
It was the same material in 2 totally different methods because of each teacher's language.
Yeah, well, being honest, it's mostly my stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But not all.
Not all, no.
Okay.
No, let's see. In this KF lab, and now what you'll notice here, now this is new, Rebecca, is the these because we're doing it online, and you don't get that interaction where people can explain how to do this stuff in the lab. But that's what really they're supposed to do. And if you weren't getting that, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But here we've got, so you've got this post lab for the KF here, but there's also a video for it. So you can actually watch that video to get clues about how to do the post lab.
Okay.
And I'm hoping I created these videos. Obviously, you'll see that
Okay.
when you go in. It's pretty obvious, and then you'll watch that and you'll be able to do it. If you're having trouble, or if you think that the videos aren't specific enough, let me know. I can always redo them.
Okay.
But I feel like I've done a pretty decent job on them.
Okay.
But we'll see. I mean, it's the first time we've used them, so.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have a question in regards to the lab book.
Yes.
So what should we include? What do you want to see in there?
I'll get to that in a minute. I haven't gotten to that yet, but I will, Fatima. All right. So in the KF folder, you see we've got the video. That's the actual lab video. You've got the pre-lab. That's what's going to be due, as you can see, May 20th, which is tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. So all the pre-labs are going to be due on the night before the lab is actually scheduled. And the way you'll know when the schedule is look at the experiment schedule. Now remember, you did sign up for a Tuesday, Thursday class, so we use the Tuesday, Thursday schedule. So this tells you what's on each day. And the pre-lab, for example, for the pH buffer lab, the pre-lab for that will be due on 6/8. Right, that's the first day we do it. It's going to be 6/9. 6/8 is when the pre-lab will be due. But this will be clear by going into the actual folder for the lab, and you'll be able to see the due date there. Also on the calendar, the My Courses calendar, it'll be clear when that date is. The actual other things, the results, the post lab, and the lab book are due 6 days after the completion of the lab. So if the lab is a 2-day lab, and that's what the pH buffer lab is, it's 2 days. You see it finishes on this Thursday, which is right here. And then you can see that the solution, it'll be here Wednesdays at 11:59 p.m. That's when all the stuff would be due for the pH buffer lab. Is everybody clear on this?
Yes.
All right. Anybody have any questions? Because
I have a question. Is there a lab notebook that we have to turn in at the end of the semester?
No, because there's no real way for you to turn it in. I don't want people sending me stuff through the mail or anything.
Okay.
So that's why it's all going to be done week to week through this Dropbox here. See this KF Lab Book Dropbox. That's where you'll be putting the pictures from your lab book.
What does the SD mean?
It's for me, it means set date, and it's so that I can, the long answer is it's so I can search for the date, for the actual lab that needs a set date on it, so that I can easily set the date. It's through a date manager within My Courses. It has, don't worry about it, it's got nothing to do with you. It's just me. It's for my convenience.
Professor, will the lab videos teach us how to do the work too?
Sometimes they will. But for example, in the KF lab video, that's just that. I will tell you, that's just the lab.
Okay.
The actual work for this lab is not very difficult, and you can get most of what you need from the actual lab manual itself. It's got all the equations and everything in there, but they're fairly simple, fairly simplistic. There's really not too much to them. Let me show you that. Let me see. I do have it here, I think. Yes, it's still available.
I'm not certain if you can hear me. I lost my headset for this particular meeting. I'm sorry about that. But
Okay.
Will the actual data that we need for the data sheets, will that be in that post-lab video, or where would that be?
I'll show you in a second.
Perfect.
Good question. That's a fantastic question, Donna. It's a great question, but I will answer it in a second. So in the background here, you've got the stuff that, the actual equations you'll be using. And the data sheets are also pretty clear about what you need as well. And they're not too hard. I don't really have it. Yeah, I don't have a video to show how this one's done, but I don't usually find that people have too much difficulty with this particular one. But for some of the other ones, I do have videos that go through it. Let me show you one. The rates of chemical reactions. I've got this post-lab, calculations for part A, calculations for part B, calculations for part C. Yeah. So that will show you exactly how to do the work. But you won't see that in the actual video, it just shows the procedure. But there are some that do show procedure and calculations. An example of that would be the voltaic cell one. In that one, I actually do go through calculations as well while we're doing the actual thing, because you have to, there's certain things you have to calculate while you're going, and certain things you have to know while you're going. So when that's necessary, that's when you'll see that.
Professor, I have a question about filling out the data sheets.
Mm-hmm.
So while we're going through the videos, are we using the data that is in the video?
No,
like,
no. I haven't shown you where the data is yet. I'm going to show you that right now. Right now. I'm answering that question right now. Okay. Down here, see where it says student data for labs? Right? So,
yes.
So it'll be down the bottom. Click on that. It's an Excel sheet, spreadsheet. I'm going to open it for you. I hope. I don't have Excel on this computer. I've got numbers, so it's not going to open exactly the same as you'll see it.
Oh my God.
Give me a second. It's opening. I promise. I might have to, I'm going to have to stop sharing for a second so I can share my desktop. So give me a second. Don't panic when it closes. Give me a second here. I'm still waiting for this to open. It's really slow. All right, let me see. You share desktop. Okay. Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. Here he is. All right. So the way it's set up is you've got each of the lab data in different tabs. So it's all there in one file for you. All right. Anybody have any questions about that?
And we just have to show the calculations on how these numbers came about, correct?
Well, how are you using those numbers? These numbers are actually observations. So these are things that would have been picked up in the lab itself. Now, these numbers are actually not mentioned in the lab video.
Okay.
But you know how we get those numbers certainly is mentioned in the lab video. That's how we get the mass of sodium chloride, how we get the mass of the salt water solution. So that gives you a bit more context as to what to do with these numbers.
Oh, so we're not actually doing the lab. We're just kind of just getting the data from this chart.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a safety thing. I can't have you doing labs at home. Although you could probably do the KF lab at home if you wanted to, if you've got a scale. Some salt.
All right. Strange enough, I actually have some equipment on the office desk. So yeah.
Yeah, I've got a postal scale. I could probably use that if I wanted to, but you don't have to do that. No, there's no actually doing it in the lab. That's why I say I really want you to watch the video though, because you can look at these numbers and say, well, where the heck did they come from? Well, that's how you'll know. All right, is that okay? Does anybody have any questions about this, about the lab data, where they're getting it from?
Not about the lab data, but as far as writing out the procedures, how detailed are you looking for us to be? Like, are we basically mimicking exactly what's in the lab notebook or summarizing it, or what are you looking for when you see the procedures part of the pages we're going to submit?
To be blunt, not much.
Okay.
The procedure's already in the lab. I'll tell you what I'm mainly focusing on. My main focus, and I've got an attachment here. This is an example of an actual lab report here. You can see that this person's done a procedure or a summary. You can do that. I'm actually not that worried about it. You can see that it's really just a summary of what they did what they would have done in the lab. I like to see it, but I don't. I'm actually not really going to require that necessarily.
Good.
What I am going to require is what you see here. Can you all see my screen? I hope you can.
Yes.
Right. Okay. I want this. You know, all of this handwritten, and you can see where it says example. That's where you would sign. That's where you'd sign diagonally across. And here the calculations. If you really want to know what I'll be focusing on, it's this. The calculation.
Do you use pencil or do you want us to use pen?
It doesn't really matter, but use something I can see, definitely. But if you look at those calculations, what you'll notice is that every number here has a unit, and then it has a description as to exactly what that number is. And I am really gung-ho about seeing that. It means a lot to me. It's very special to me to see that. So this gives you an example. This is for the first lab, actually. So you can use this as a guide as to what I'm expecting to see on your calculations. So for the summary here, you can do whatever you want.
Okay.
Right? I'm not really going to be focusing too much on that. I would like a table of contents. That'd be great. But, you know, I'm not really that gung-ho on the procedure, but the calculations are really special. The reason for that is because you get to use this lab book during your lab final. And the better you set out those calculations, the easier your lab final is going to be. I guarantee it.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you.
All right. Does that answer, Fatima, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. I also have something listed here about the lab book. Here we go. Lab book requirements. Here we go. A summary of lab activities. Now, the summary, like I said, I'm very, I have a lot of latitude on that. A lot of latitude. Do whatever you want for the summary part. Tape or glue in the data sheets, or copy the data sheet information directly into your lab notebook. What I mean by that is that you can just draw up the tables yourself and put the data in. I think that's silly, but people do it. I think it's a waste of time myself. But anyway, not all labs have calculations. The KF one does, but not all labs do. And if there are calculations, then every quantity needs a number, a unit, and a full description of what that number and unit represents. A unit itself is not a sufficient description. So if you've got 0.458, let's say you've got 4.58 moles of something. 4.58 moles is not a description. 4.58 moles and then moles of something would be a description. So I want that to be really clear. You can see the formatting I've used down here. Number, unit, then description.
I have a question.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is it necessary for us to use a graphing
No.
notebook in particular?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay.
I think you'll get more value out of using a lined book myself.
Okay.
You can use a graphing book. It's fine. It's not a problem. I have nothing against them. but I think you'll get better value out of that. I also have a preference myself for the spiral bound ones because they're easier to open and keep open than the composition books.
Okay.
But you'll definitely need something like that. All right, any other questions?
So as long as we really understand all of the calculations as we go through each lab looking towards the final, it's not going to be so much about procedures and mixing and that type of thing as it is understanding how to manipulate the data.
I would agree with that statement.
Okay.
Yes, I think that's true.
Okay.
Even in the lab final we do in the actual lab, it's not really something that requires a great deal of dexterity.
Okay.
So I don't feel like you're losing that much on the lab final here either.
Okay.
Let's have a look.
Are the page numbers for the experiments like in the lab book recorded somewhere? Like for the KF, where would I find the tables I need?
Well, it's actually the first lab, but they're not actually.
Okay.
You're right. They may not be in the same order in all cases. It's roughly about the order, but there is a little bit of variation. However,
and then fucking work with tools and mix things and calculate things. I get all the data given to me. All I have to do is fill out and do the calculations. Oh my god.
I'm sorry.
It's life-changing.
I'm not sure who's talking. I'm a little bit lost here. Hang on. Did somebody have a question or a comment? Was that you, Megan?
No, I already asked what I had to say.
Oh, okay. All right. Megan, I think that might be you. Could you please mute yourself? Megan, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. All right. Any other questions about the labs? Oh, yeah, that's right. I said I was going to. Yeah, it's pretty much in the same order. The other thing I was going to point out, when you look at the let's see, experiment schedule. Okay. You can see that these are specified as to exactly what the titles are. You can just look for those titles in the lab manual. Those are the actual titles as they appear in the lab manual. All right, anybody got any questions? Did I lose you all?
No, not at all.
No, okay, all right.
Question will be about the lab final.
I'm sorry, was that a question about lab final?
Well, it will be the next question, but I don't want to jump ahead, so I think you have a good flow.
All right. Well, let's talk about lab final. We'll go to that now because there's nothing else here on the syllabus I want to talk about unless anybody wanted to ask any questions about anything I've been over thus far. I will, before I get to the lab final, I will say one other thing, and that's about the Dropbox here and the Dropbox requirements. So let's look at the KF lab. You'll notice there is this KF lab book here, and it's got the directions here, but it has to be a single PDF file or a single Microsoft Word file. Now, what you can do here is you can take your pictures with your phone or whatever, and then upload the pictures and then paste those pictures into one single MS Word file. Don't put all the pictures in a zip file and submit them that way. I can't easily see them that way, but if you do it this way, then I can easily open them without having to leave my courses, which adds to my convenience greatly. And I think that would be really great if you would do that, please. All right, lab final. So the lab final is, there is a, well, hang on, I thought there was a, yes, yeah, lab practical final study guide. I might actually move that. into the lab final folder. That would make a lot more sense. I'll delete that. And we'll, I'll show you what it looks like now. So in lab final folder, you'll find this study guide here, and the lab final is also in that folder as well. And there's a specific time that it starts and ends here. So you have to be mindful of that. And that will be done under honor lock. I haven't set it up for honor lock yet, but yes, it will be done under honor lock. Everything else though isn't done under honor lock. The only thing done under honor lock will be the lab final. You'll notice there's also a scratch paper thing here where you can do stuff on rough work and then submit that, and I'll consider that for partial credit. Did anybody have any other questions about the lab final?
Yes, actually. You said that we can use our lab notebooks for this?
You certainly can.
So, okay, what else can we use with the lab final, basically? What about the lab manual?
No, just the lab, just your lab notebook. But you can have anything you like written in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Useful. Okay.
All right. But, you know, the main thing that's going to be useful, being completely honest here, is the calculations. And having them done correctly. If you have those done correctly, you'll be fine.
Gotcha.
What it mostly is, mostly calculations.
Now, you said this is being done through HonorLock. I was going to do, I use what's called a Rocketbook so that it makes me able to basically take the stuff that I handwrite, and then I can wipe the page clean, and it records the stuff electronically. But if I'm using HonorLock, I won't be able to refer to those notes that way. So I will need to actually use real live paper.
Yeah.
So that I can have my version. Okay.
Yeah, but you'll have, the thing is, you'll have to do that anyway for the lab book. So you'll have the space and places to put all that in.
Okay.
So if you really think you're going to need more notes for each lab, then leave a couple of pages after you've done each lab, and you can put some notes in there for the final if you want to. But you've got the study guide here, which gives you a very, very good idea about the kinds of things you're going to see. Let's see, I'll open it up here.
No, I meant that I was going to do my lab notebook as an electronic lab notebook.
Oh, right. I don't want
to be able to do that with HonorLock.
Yeah, but I don't want you to do it anyway.
Okay.
All right. So this is the kind of thing you'll see on the lab final. So you just look at that review sheet. That'll give you a very good idea of what you'll see.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I don't think you'll need much other than what we're doing in the actual labs. And if you go with those requirements about the calculations, I think everybody will be fine. I really do. But I will be really hard-nosed about those calculations. I guarantee it. So just be warned. Make sure you do a decent job on them. All right, anybody got any other questions about anything so far?
Not every lab, we don't have to submit, because I was looking through all the labs, we don't have to submit lab pages for every lab, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, some of them don't have a Dropbox. So you can assume that if there's no Dropbox in that lab, well, I'm not looking for anything.
Right.
Examples of those would be, I think, the 10 dropper bottle mystery.
Yeah, that's one of them.
And I think the graphing lab is another one that doesn't have a lab notebook requirement.
And I'm also confused on the KF pre-lab. So what is in the pre-lab? Like, what does that consist of? There's results for KF lab and post-lab for KF lab.
Right. The pre-lab is going to be, it's mainly what's in the actual lab itself, procedure-wise. So there's questions in there about how many grams of something you might be using or how many mils of something you might be using. And also some fairly rudimentary calculations. Nothing really complex, but something that uses the calculations that you would have seen in the lab manual.
Okay, and you'll find that in the manual rather than the lab video, correct? For the
Or you might find it in both places, but you're more likely to find it in the lab manual. Sometimes, though, it might be useful to watch the lab video before you do the pre-lab. Maybe. I'm not going to say every time, but it might be useful. And if it's only a 5-minute video, I don't see the problem. If it's like a 30 or 60-minute video, then I can see why you might not want to watch it twice. I get that. Is that okay, Locho?
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, there's a question in the chat.
Sorry, who's asking this? I can't see on the screen here.
It says that they're using an iPad Pro with a pencil to make a digital lab notebook PDF. Will this be a problem when it comes to honor lock on the final?
Oh, are you looking in chat? Okay. I didn't know there was chat going on here. I'm sorry about that. It will be a problem. That's why I'm saying you'll need an actual physical lab notebook, and you won't be able to do it electronically.
So what is the difference between the results quiz and then the post-lab quiz?
The results quiz actually goes through and allows you the opportunity to answer specific questions about how you got certain numbers in the data, in the calculated data. It's pretty much just a way of showing how much you understand the relationship between the different bits of data. The post lab goes through different kinds of similar problems. And, they're similar problems to what's in the actual end of the lab, the lab manual. There's a post-lab questions there. They'll be similar to those. But again, you'll get 2 attempts at it. And if you've understood how to do the calculations in the results section, then you shouldn't have any trouble with the post-lab. However, for this one, I definitely would watch the KF post-lab video to get an indication of how to do some of those problems, because some of them are a little bit tricky. Is that clear?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions anybody has?
So
The
we're
KF
doing the
lab book
KF
Sorry.
Zoe, I'll take you first.
Okay, so we're doing the KF lab tomorrow. Are we doing the safety lab?
The safety lab it would have been done today, and but it's not due until next Monday. Or sorry, next Monday. Next Monday, 11:59 p.m.
Okay, so we're still doing it, just out of order.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, I had another question. So the ones that we're not turning in the lab book for, will those still be useful to have for the lab final?
They might.
So are we still doing a lab book but not turning it in?
No, you're not doing a lab book at all for those.
Okay.
You might do graphs for the graphing. You'll actually have to do graphs, but you'll be uploading those graphs anyway.
Okay, thank you.
So no, there's nothing specifically in the lab book that you would need for those, I don't think. There's another one, that 10 test tube thing. That's more a logic thing. And what you might want to do for that, and I'll just tell you straight up, and I'll bring this back up closer to the final as well. There's this practice quiz here. I'd recommend doing that again before the lab final, because you might see something similar there. But you wouldn't need anything specifically in your lab book for that.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody else had a question.
So for the KF lab SD, the lab book SD, it will just look like a regular lab book we turn in class, kind of same format.
Yeah, that's the idea. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make this as much like a lab as possible, even though we're not actually in lab. But I still want your lab book to look like it would look if you're actually doing it in the lab. That's the intent.
I have a quick question.
I have a question too.
Okay.
You go first.
I was just, the syllabus, are we going to be printing out a copy, manually signing it and scanning that to you?
No, not the
Okay.
syllabus. No, don't worry about that. I don't know. Does it say that somewhere?
On the 5th tab, after you've completed all the syllabus requirements, it has a printout of it. So I
Okay.
didn't know if we were going to fill that out and submit it to you.
No, don't worry about that.
Okay.
Do I actually have to cut out like the calculated like data sheet and glue it onto a notebook? Can I just like scan it and then scan my notebook paper with the work on it?
I don't, from what you said, no, I don't think you can do that. Because I want it to be, I want you to treat this like you were actually in the lab and writing stuff down. You wouldn't do that while you're actually in the lab, right? You wouldn't.
Right.
You know, so treat it as something as you would do actually in the lab. That's what I want you to do. That's what I want you to do.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions about anything here?
No.
The main thing is just try and keep up with the schedule. Recognize that you will sometimes be doing 2 labs in 1 week per the schedule. And some labs will take 2 days and some labs will take 1 day. But, you know, you have to, that's the thing with, but that's the thing with a regular lab, you know, you have to keep up with that. And it's a bit of a challenge in the summer, you know, getting through all those labs and doing all the lab reports and assignments. If you need my help, I am going to be having these Zoom sessions every Tuesday at noon, but they're completely optional. I'll record them as well. And I'll just go through some of the things that had happened in the previous week and in the and what will happen in the upcoming week. That'll be helpful too, I think.
Can we go ahead? Meaning, can we, you know, I know we don't want to fall behind on the labs, but what if we get a burst of energy and we have all the time in the world and we're not sleeping, you know, can we move ahead?
Yeah, I can't see why not. I can't see why it would be an issue.
Are we able to take the lab final earlier than the actual date scheduled?
At this point, I'll think about it.
Okay.
I'll think about it, but at this point, my preference is for everybody to take it at the same time. Again, it's for more about test security than anything else for me.
That makes sense. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
The other thing I will mention, look at the, actually, I'm going to go in as a student here. Grades, yeah. So this will be a really good guide as to what you've done, what you haven't done as well. Lays everything out. See, you've got your pre-labs, results, post-labs, lab book grades are all here. You'll notice with the lab book grades, they add up to more than 100 points, which means if you do them all, you'll actually get some bonus points. And also if you miss one, it probably won't affect you very much. All right, so how many have we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, so 8 15s. Yeah, it's more than 100 points.
Is the grade page on this similar to your normal chemistry class where the number at the top might not be accurate because of formulas and stuff?
Absolutely, yes, that would be true. In fact, I don't even think it's there. There is no number at the top. But I will say this, look down the bottom here. Look down the bottom. See how I've got a letter grade after each lab? See? So that's what I would want you to look at to keep a running total of your grade.
It does seem like too from the syllabus that the pre-labs, the results, and the post-labs, you drop the lowest grade.
That is true, yes. Now it's done by calculation though, so you don't actually see the grade dropped.
Okay.
If that makes sense. What you'll see is, and see this pre-lab score, result score, post-lab score, lowest dropped, that's all calculated. That keeps a running total of everything as you go.
Okay.
I know there's a lot here in the grade book, but I think there's a lot here, but it is transparent and it gives you a lot of information about your grade. If you have any concerns about it, please let me know. Please email me, because most of the time it's just a thing that I can point out to you in the grade book that will alleviate any questions you might have.
Now, taking a quick gander, this isn't like the lecture where the final would be optional if you're doing well through on everything else. We have to take the lab final here.
You will have to take the lab final. That's correct.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. And that's why it's important to have a good lab book as you go. And because you're submitting it each week, I know that you'll be having a good lab book. Any other questions?
Okay, one last one for me.
Okay.
So in some of the previous lab courses that I've had, there was usually a really long delay before we would get the grades from the labs.
Mm.
In the beginning,
that won't be the case with me.
It won't be the case. Okay, that's well, sometimes it's hard to know if you're submitting it correctly. If you're not getting the feedback, so it's hard to know as you're going forward with the lab. So great news. Thank you.
Yeah, I grade them pretty quick. Now, if you put them in long before they're due, then they get graded very quickly. If you wait until the day that they're due, you might have to wait a day for your grades, but it wouldn't be any more than a day. That would be the max, sort of the next morning or something like that. I mean, usually I must admit, I get a lot of these. One thing I do in the lab, and I'll do it here as well, but I'll send out an email too. If you hand the results in 3 days before they're due, then I'll give you a bonus 5%. I don't put it in the syllabus, but I will make everybody aware of that. That way, I can pretty much guarantee that I'm not going to get them all at once. Most people will. At least a third of the class will put them in beforehand.
That's for the lab reports, right?
Yeah, but that's for the results report. Yeah.
Okay.
So I will do that. That way, that will encourage people to get it done earlier, but it will also make it so I don't have to grade 24 at once. All right. Any other questions? Anything at all? All right. So what I think you need to do is do the pre-lab for the KF lab. That should be probably your first priority. Then I would do because that's due tomorrow night at 11:59 p.m. Then I would do everything in the safety folder and get that done, and then that'll get you going. Just keep up. That's the main thing. Just keep up. I won't be emailing you each week telling you what's due. I'll sort of be here during the Zoom sessions to make you aware of that kind of stuff, but I won't be doing that. You need to go into the lab folders each time and make sure that you're on task, you're on track. All right. Anything else? Any other questions?
No, sir.
Nope. Thank you.
All right. Well, if anybody has any questions, you can email me. And if you need any help at any time, don't hesitate to email me. I'll also talk on the phone with you if I need to. And if you have ideas for things that I need to add to lab folders to help you, let me know. Let me know, please. And I'll consider adding them. All right? Okay. Well, good luck, everybody. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for coming.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.